What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. Saul Canelo Alvarez, the widely recognized #1 pound-for-pound fighter in boxing, is set to take on WBA light heavyweight champion Dimitri Bivol. Now, Alvarez will be looking to enhance his legacy and add to his resume and become a champion in another weight class. Now, this is going to be the first of a 2-fight deal. Now, it has the potential to be a 3-fight deal, but officially it's a 2-fight deal with a 3rd fight option. Now, the fight with Bivol will be May 7th, Cinco de Mayo weekend. He beats Bivol, which is a tall order. Bivol is a guy that not hardly anybody knows, but is actually a good fighter, probably the best fighter Canelo Alvarez has fought since Triple G. Now, Canelo Alvarez, if he defeats Bivol, he will have lined up a trilogy with Triple G. That fight will take place in September, mid part of September, Mexican Independence Day weekend. So it'll be the Saturday in the middle of September. Now, that fight, just like the fight with Bivol, will take place in Las Vegas, Nevada, aka Sin City. Now, the financial package for the 2-fight deal has not been shown to the public, and there's a good reason behind that, because that package pales in comparison to the package that he turned down with the PBC. Now, Tom Brown came out on Boxing Scene in an article that came out today, and he said that the deal that Canelo Alvarez turned down for a 2-fight deal with the PBC would have paid him $100 million for 2 fights. The first fight would have been against WBC middleweight champion Charlo. He would have moved up to 168 to fight for Alvarez's 4 belts. And Canelo Alvarez, get this, would have made a $45 million guarantee. You know what a $45 million guarantee means? That means at the very least, he's gonna make $45 million. If everything goes wrong, if everything goes left, he's gonna get $45 million. So in all likelihood, he's gonna make more than $45 million. He turned that down to take on Bivol. Now, check this out. The PBC was gonna collaborate with Showtime Boxing, led by Stephen Epstein, and put on that fight. Now, that's the same people that put on the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Sweet Hand Plants. That fight generated 800,000 pay-per-view buys. Canelo Alvarez's 4th highest pay-per-view buys, as him being the A side. Only 3 fights did better than that fight. That was the 2 fights with Triple G. The first fight did 1.3 million. The second fight did 1.1 million. And the fight with Chavez Jr., who can't fight worth a damn but has a famous last name. His dad is one of the most famous people in Mexico. One of the all-time great Mexican fighters. One of the all-time great fighters in boxing, period. Probably top 30, top 35 all-time great fighters. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. His son fought Canelo Alvarez. I'm going to get back to this fight, too, because this really played a part in him turning down the fight with PBC. I'm going to set the stage for you later on, but just let me cook right now. Just let me cook right now. Those 3 fights were the only fights that Canelo Alvarez was a part of as an A-side that did better than the Caleb Plant fight. Now, these people was going to put on a fight between you and Charlo. Now, if he did 800,000 with Caleb Plant, who doesn't nearly have the name ID as a Charlo. Everybody know the Charlo twins. Even casual boxing fans know the Charlo twins. If he did 800,000 with Caleb Plant, he gonna at least do 850 with Charlo. And then you're gonna get a $45 million guaranteed minimum, which probably would have been closer to $60 million with the pay-per-view numbers you would have generated with Charlo. You turned that down. And then if you would have defeated Charlo, you got a $55 million guarantee to take on Charlo Spence Jr., who's one of the biggest draws in the sport of boxing. The second biggest U.S. citizen pay-per-view attraction here in the U.S. I ain't talking about Canelo, he's from Mexico. The only guy that does better numbers than Charlo Spence Jr. here in America is Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. You could have fought him at a catch weight of 164 pounds. He's coming up from 147. He's a unified welterweight champion. He is the top dog in the welterweight division. I'm kind of glad in that aspect that the fight didn't happen, because we're very, very close to getting Charlo Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford. Now, if Canelo Alvarez would have accepted that deal, then that fight wouldn't be on the horizon like it is right now. We on the brink of that fight finally going down in the latter part of 2022. So maybe Canelo Alvarez did that to save that fight. Maybe that's what the reason why he turned that deal down. Doubtful, but we can only hope, huh? But anyway, he turned down $55 million guarantee to take on Charlo Spence Jr. He could have said, well, I ain't gonna get no credit for beating up a smaller guy, moving up 2 weight classes. Okay, cool. We got another option for you, Canelo. You can fight Benavidez, the boogeyman of the super middleweight division, the #1 WBC contender. He got a fight coming up in a little over 2 weeks for the WBC interim super middleweight title. He's undefeated, tall, big, physical, come forward, fan-friendly type of fighter. A guy that, unlike Bivol, can talk up a fight. He's gonna help promote the fight. He's going to do some similar things like Caleb Plant did in helping promoting the fight. He's a Mexican fighter, so that's going to help the fight out. You didn't want no part of that, because right after the Chavez Jr. fights, many people might have missed this, Canelo Alvarez came out after that fight and said he is not going to fight a Mexican fighter no more. That's the last time you're going to see him in the ring fighting a Mexican fighter, because I think that fight left a bad taste in his mouth. You know, he beat the son of the legend, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., one of his idols. I think that left a bad taste in his mouth. Now, him and Chavez Jr. had a lot of bad blood, so he went in there and took care of business, and he dominated him from round 1 to round 12 and defeated the hype job known as Chavez Jr., who's been living off his dad's last name for quite a while now. He was actually a decent fighter about 5-6 years ago, when he was beating Rubio and stopping, what's that boy name? Mike Lee? Not Mike Lee, but what's that boy name? The trainer for Tyson Fury. Last name Lee. Came up under the Croc Gym in the legendary trainer Marion Stewart. When he was defeating those guys, he actually was a decent fighter. But by the time he got around to fighting, Canelo Alvarez, he had became a joke in boxing. He was a guy that didn't take boxing seriously. He was a guy that instead of going to the gym and training, he'll move furniture in his house and train in his drawers after eating a bowl of Cheerios. Absolutely ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. That was on All Access, HBO All Access, when they were promoting the fight between him and then champion Sergio Martinez. With all that being said, he turned down those 2 lucrative fights. Charlo in May, Charlo Spence Jr. or David Benavidez in September to take on Dimitri Bivol, who speaks no English, who nobody outside of the hardcore boxing fans know. And he want to fight Old Man River, Triple G, the artist formerly known as Triple G, who still has power, but obviously is not the same fighter he was back when they fought in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. The first and second fight, he's not the same fighter that fought in those 2 fights. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I'm actually more excited about the Triple G fight, because it's unfinished business, because I thought Triple G won the first fight. The second fight could have been a draw. I have no problem with Canelo Alvarez getting the nod in the second fight. So I'm actually more excited about that fight. But the Dimitri Bivol fight, I know Bivol is a good fighter. In my opinion, Bivol probably is the best fighter since Triple G that Canelo Alvarez has fought. I probably put him slightly ahead of Daniel Jacobs. He's definitely better than Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith. Those guys are, great over there in the UK, but when you talk about matching them up with the top fighters over here in the US, I wouldn't rate them at all in comparison. I don't see them, if they were to fight, say Billy Joe Saunders before you fought Canelo Alvarez, would have came over here and fought Caleb Plant. I would have took Caleb Plant to win that fight. He'd have fought Daniel Jacobs when they was talking about fighting. He's talking about Daniel Jacobs got to give him $5 million. He asked for some ridiculous demand. I would have rated Daniel Jacobs to beat him. He was already set to fight Boo Boo Andrade, and he ended up getting busted for PDs, and he ended up getting pulled out of that fight. So if that fight went down, I think Demetrius Bivol, I believe Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade would have beat him. With all that being said, who made this quote? Somebody made a quote. I think it might have been Jeff Mayweather, the uncle of the legendary fighter Floyd Mayweather Jr. He said, look, what Canelo Alvarez is doing is making the most money for the lesser risk. He's taking the money, he's taking big money fights for less risk. He don't want to take big money fights for high risk. He'd rather take big money fights for less risk. Even though he might be making a little less for the less risk fights, he's willing to take on those type of fights, and he always can hide behind, hey, I'm fighting for a title. I'm moving up and waiting, fighting the champion. Charlo ain't got no title. He got a title at 160. I can't make 160 anymore. He would have to come up to 168 and fight me for my 4 belts. He has nothing to offer me. Neither does David Benavidez. He doesn't have a belt. But when David Benavidez had a belt, you weren't trying to fight him, Canelo. You know, and then as soon as he got stripped of those 2 belts for reasons only, you know, reasons only that only he has himself to blame, you then want to jump up there and fight for the WBC super middleweight title all of a sudden. You know, you fought Yildirim and y'all fought for the vacant belt, and you was able to beat him in one of the most prolific mismatches in boxing. You was able to collect another belt. With all that being said, I don't know about YouTubers and YouTubettes, you guys that's watching this video, but look, I can bet any kind of money, top dollar, stacks of money, that he don't produce the numbers that he produced in the Caleb Plant fight for the pay-per-view numbers. He did 800K for Caleb Plant. I guarantee you he don't do 800K for Bivol. If they do 500K, they need to call that a success and move on to Triple G. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts about what TGB promoter Tom Brown said about Canelo Alvarez pushed $1 million to the side, pushed it off to the side in a much more lucrative package than the package that the Zone had. But the fighters that he's fighting there are less riskier than a Jamal Charlo, who you know coming to win, and a David Benavidez, one of the biggest super middleweights in history. And even if he took on Charlo Spence Jr., that's a guy that's never lost and a guy that's going to come to win, and he's going to give Canelo Alvarez all he can handle, even at 164 pounds. Let me know your thoughts. Follow me on Twitter, JBsports3303. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.